Hi folks, it is Thibaut Van Dam here with another YouTube video. And for those of you who are not familiar with my channel, I am a DIY singer-songwriter and guitar tutor based in Southeast London. And today I'm very excited to be doing a review of the AKG K371s. These are closed back headphones that are aimed at people that are mostly working in studio applications like recording themselves or maybe mixing, but they can also of course be used for casual listening. And so I'm going to be reviewing them, and throughout this video I will be referring to the Audio-Technica ATH M50s and also the Beyerdynamic DT770s, which are also closed back headphones with comparable applications and for a similar price. And I think that these three headphones represent the triumvirate of basically the most meaningful kind of closed back headphones. I could be very wrong about that, but let me know in the comments below if you can think of another model that you think is worth trying out that is on par with these. So in this video today, I'll be looking at price, I'll be talking about clamp and how that relates to comfort, stability, leak, and isolation. I'll be talking about build quality and the sound. And there were a few experiments I went through to help me kind of ascertain what I felt about the sound. And then at the end, I'll talk about practical value of the headphones. All to say that I think that they're worth it and that they're worth trying, even if you're not sure about them. And you can always decide once you have them, I guess. And then some final thoughts about what I would like to see in the future with these, because they are, relatively speaking, fairly new as far as headphones go. 770s have been around since the 80s. These were released in 2019, so 4 years ago, but still sort of modern, sort of new in the headphone world. So if this sounds interesting, please stay tuned. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to stay in the loop. It lets me know that you like content like this, you want me to make more. I will do an updated review of the open back K702s by AKG. And if it comes to it, I will do more reviews of other sort of closed back headphones or other sort of things. Although this is not my wheelhouse, I should also point out that I have a whole series of videos about practical guitar and music theory. If you're interested in that, go check it out, because I have lessons to help anyone that's interested in learning how to play guitar, from knowing absolutely nothing to writing your own music. We're about to do a video about functional harmony. When I say we, I mean I am planning on doing this video on functional harmony, which is kind of the very beginnings of songwriting. So check it out if you're interested, for sure. And thank you to everyone that does subscribe. It really does mean a lot. It's why I'm here right now. Let's go ahead and get into it. So in terms of price, these cost £125 in the UK. For a while, there was kind of a lack of availability. I don't know why that was, but they are relatively inexpensive as far as headphones go. I believe that these offer substantial value, and for an impressive comfort, stability, everything that I'm going to be talking about, I am more than satisfied with every single aspect, and that there are just a few tweaks that I'd like to see made in the future. And I think that they're definitely worth trying out. I am actually surprised with the performance of these. So I'll just go ahead and start by talking about some simple things like the clamp force, the comfort, stability, leak, and isolation. So the website that I use to help me get the specs of the actual clamp force of these is ratings.com, which is ratings without the A. I'll put a link in the description so you can go check it out. They have a comparison tool so you can compare these to other headphones like the DT770s if you are interested. And I should also just stress that I'm speaking from the perspective of someone that does record my own music and needs headphones to do that, and also for casual listening and also for mixing. So these are some things that I'm looking to get out of these headphones, and I'm sort of comparing my use case to these things. But you should also say that you should consider your use case, and through that you might get an idea of whether or not they're right for you. Now, ratings.com has evaluated these as having a clamp force of 1.2 pounds, which is, for me personally, with a 60 centimeter circumference head and ears like mine, I don't know, perfect. That is like the sweet spot between 1 and 1.3 pounds. Now the ATH M50s were at 1 pound of clamp force, the DT770 is 1.3. And like I said in my last video comparing those two headphones, 1.3 pounds is kind of my limit, especially because I can only really handle 1.3 pounds because the ear cups are truly over ear. They truly go around my ear. And without that, these fortunately have that as well. Without that, they wouldn't be so comfortable. I actually think that these are at least on par with the Beyerdynamics in terms of comfort, maybe even a little bit more comfortable, but that kind of comes at the expense of the feeling of kind of inspired with confidence thing that I got from the Beyerdynamics. And I sort of want to explain. So when I chose the Beyerdynamics, I chose them because there was a big panel of metal on the yoke. Because every time I pick them up, these feel like some serious piece of recording equipment. This feels like a tool you would use, like a hammer, basically. And they're robust. And the thing is that with the AKGs, just like what I said when I was comparing the 702s to the 990s, which are also beyerdynamic headphones, the deceitfully durable part about AKG headphones is like their bendiness. And I feel like that is still sort of true with the 371s. It's a totally different mindset about what makes headphones durable, which is to say that these don't feel like they're made out of some serious metal, and if you throw them at a wall they'll be fine, but they do feel like they can bend a good amount, and so I feel like that is their durability in practice. Now they are very comfortable, and this is because the ear cups are truly over ear. You can see that there, and they're oblong. The other thing is that the faux leather pads are sort of, there's this weird thing that happens where they're quite cool when you first put them on. They do get warmer, but because they're over ear, they don't push on my ear at all like the ATH M50s, and so they're a lot more comfortable. Now, ratings.com rated these as having a 5 for stability. I don't agree. Actually, I feel something happens with these where, like marshmallows, they kind of get a little bit squashed and then they're done. They're stuck and they stay there, and then they're very stable. I feel like I'd give them a 7 for stability. And the thing is that they pointed that out as being one of the drawbacks of the 371s. And I don't think that that's like a really valid thing. And I guess it does vary from person to person. But for me, I found they were very stable. And then at the same time, I feel like they offered really great isolation, at least on par with the 770s. And then with leak, they're actually ranked on ratings.com as being the best in terms of preventing leak. And I could see why that's true because of the way that they actually clamp in this kind of marshmallowy squashing thing. When I put them on, you'll sort of see what I mean. I can't hear a single thing now. It's like I feel like one of the adults in Charlie Brown. That's what it feels like to me. And yeah, I don't get any leak hardly at all. And now, the way that they measure leak is they actually do a recording. They have a whole measurement thing, and they're measuring the volume of the leak as it sort of exits from the headphones, and they record it. So I would actually trust their evaluation of that. Now, in terms of build, ratings.com gave these a 7, and I agree with this. And it's a really delicate sort of balance of things. Like the 702s, I think what I was saying a moment ago, what makes them so durable is their kind of bendy nature. The components I would be worried about lasting are specifically the pads. The pads feel comfortable, but they feel comfortable in a way that I feel like I could rip this if I wasn't careful. And I've even seen photos of these kind of splitting and stuff. And there was some early manufacturing problems with these. So I'm not really sure. Right now they seem like, it looks like they could be like this for a very long time. So that's pretty good. But in terms of longevity, the thing I'm most concerned about really is that AKG does not have the same infrastructure as Beyerdynamics, so you can't really get manufacturer-built replacement pads on Amazon or anything like that, like you can with the Beyerdynamics, and that leaves only third-party aftermarket pads available, and we all know that that jeopardizes the sound performance of the headphones. And speaking of which, the sound is an incredibly well-tuned pair of headphones. They sound remarkable, and you would want to preserve that. So now let's just talk about sound a little bit. So they are ranked at 32 ohms of impedance, which means they're very easy to drive. You can drive them with your phone. You get, all to say, a good listening volume. Now, although they work with my phone, like I mentioned in my last video with the ATH M50s and the 770s, while they get loud, they seem to lose some kind of pizzazz in the sound. To be more specific, I feel like they lose clarity and separation between the instruments. That is the symbol, universal symbol for clarity and separation between instruments. And yeah, that's kind of it. They still sound, they have their shared sound signature. They still sound like what they would. Just that kind of amazing thing that happens where things get a little bit spaced out and you're like, ooh, that's that one thing. And if I could, you can almost imagine removing things, or you can really pin down what is too loud or too quiet. And in terms of what the frequency response really is, I feel they're unbelievably well balanced. They're the closest to any mix sound that I've ever heard or even done myself. So what do I mean by that? I mean, like, when I listen to a song, in my mind, I have an idea, especially a song I'm familiar with, of course, I have an idea of how that song should sound. I already kind of know what I'm expecting. And these sound like exactly like what I would imagine that song sounding like, except just with a little bit more detail almost everywhere. And that is amazing. And in a way, I think of them as having a very similar sound profile to my Genelec 8020Bs, which means that they're translatable, because I actually trust my monitors in terms of getting a mix and the authenticity of what they really sound like. So I feel like these are like a mini version of those, and therefore very useful for traveling with. Now, in terms of design, because they fold up, I feel like they could be used on the go. You may not get the same sort of frequency response or the same kind of sound signature precisely if you're using your phone to like evaluate mixes or whatever, but I think that they would be satisfactory through and through. Now, there is one thing that I noticed about them, and it's a great contrast between these and the 770s, which is basically that they seem to have a bit of a mid push. It's not enough to make me worried that they're inauthentic to the mids. It's almost like where the 770s seem to be lacking in terms of voice or sometimes drum body sounds. I feel like these, you can hear that really clearly. It doesn't affect the high end. It doesn't affect the low end. It's just more audible there in a satisfying way, which I really like. But I feel like sometimes maybe it's just a little bit unnatural. Just a little bit, not enough to make me feel like I couldn't trust them. A little bit like how the 702s have that top forwardness, but I still trust those. Same deal with these, but with the mids. And I think that that means that they are also a welcome addition to this sort of monitoring setup I have. So in terms of my first experiment, I did a mono test. I feel like I mentioned in my last video with the 770s that doing a test in mono is probably the absolute best way to really evaluate what the sound signature of headphones are and what's really going on. And in mono, what I loved the most was that clarity seemed maintained between all instruments in the frequency range. It spoke to the efficacy of good mixes, basically. Like if you listen to Steely Dan with these, what I found was, because Steely Dan was very meticulous with their production, I feel like this speaks to what they were achieving. And I know that these are just sort of the messenger in a way. So it's because they did a good mix, but these don't conflate or confuse or distort that mix. These sound like that mix, in my opinion. I feel like I was pretty surprised with that. And to go with that, I feel like that is also true of my own mixes. So that was my second experiment. I listened to my own music, my EP 67, my album 79, and I found that the representations of the different sound choices that I had made about my voice, about my guitar, about the drum sounds, things like that, I felt was authentic through and through. It almost validated the decisions I made. I said, these were good decisions I made, and these tell me that I made the right choice. It was really pleasing to basically know that these speak toward that same mix and mix strategy that I had. It made me feel like I made some good choices, actually. And there was still that separation throughout and useful detail where you could basically imagine what happens if this was a bit louder or if that was a bit quieter, and isolating certain sounds in a way that the 770s does, maybe just not as to an extreme level. And so in that sense, I think that when we talk about practical value, that the sound is phenomenal. I think that the sound is probably the best that I've ever heard for the price point. It is distinctly superior to the M50s and the 770s, even the 250 ohm version. I think that that sound signature is just sublime. I love it. And it's very enjoyable. It can be a little boring at times because it's sort of predictable, because what you think you are expecting, you usually hear. I think that is exactly why they're so useful. And in that sense, I think that they're also useful for mix balancing in terms of volume, like different instruments, but also identifying problems, just like the 770s would be. So in a way, if I had to choose between these and the 770s, I would choose these maybe with an air of caution that if something did go wrong, the infrastructure was not there to necessarily get a repair. But I do want to explain sort of something else that happened, which is I wrote to AKG to find out what would happen if the ear pads split or something like that. And they wrote back pretty quick. I was pretty impressed with how prompt they were. And they said, we're so sorry about that. Please either reach out to the retailer or fill out a form with us. Now, I would be all the more worried if something dumb happened with them out of warranty. I basically feel like I would be out of luck, basically, and that these, maybe that would be the thing that does these in. So that's a bit disappointing. Now, it makes sense in a way because the Beyerdynamics have existed for like 40 years now, and so that infrastructure took time and trust, and the legacy took so long to develop. I like to think that with the sound profile these offer, the comfort they offer, even this component of metal, I know it's a small amount of metal, but this is meaningful to me. It makes me feel like I take myself more seriously than the M50s and maybe a little less seriously than the DT770s. It's like that perfect middle ground in a way. And I would say that for me is really good. So in some ways, I basically think that these are phenomenal headphones and they could start a legacy of their own. And that's really exciting to say because I feel like I've gone through a lot of different headphones and I feel like these seem to show me something else that I want to see and hear. Practical things that are useful, folding. Folding is useful. Look at this. You can fold it. It's worth pointing out, people don't say this, but you can't actually fold them both ways, just backwards, according to the left channel. These are smaller and more compact than the 770s. That's useful. Here's another thing. The low impedance means that you can take them to other places and other systems to work, especially because they fold. Good. They have 3 cables. I didn't mention this, but they have 3 cables. So they are filling in that same price point and market that the M50s are offering. They have a short flat cable, which is great. I love this cable. I use this the most. It is not microphonic. So if you accidentally nudge it or something, you don't hear it. It's actually amazing how little you hear it. There is a long flat cable, 3 meters long, also non-microphonic. However, there is one coil cable, which is 1.2 meters, I think. And it is the most microphonic cable I ever heard. It is not supple. It's like the opposite of the Beyerdynamic cable, coil cable. And it is kind of infuriating. I don't know why it has to be of inferior quality. And that doesn't feel good for me. I don't like that. And for me, I don't think I'll ever use it. It will remain as a spare in the event something stupid happens. But that is fine because I think that there's something special rewarded in a sense to the brand loyalty. AKG, other headphones like the 702s, also use the same 3-pin mini XLR connector. And so because of that, you can actually take advantage of this by using and mixing and matching cables with different headsets. That's really cool. I like that. It means that when you're part of the AKG family, in a sense, if you use the 702s or the 712s, you can use the 371 cables and interchange them. And that I think is really handy. And it's nice to have extra cables. In this case, they serve both the utility and also as spares. I think that's good. Now, I think that another thing I'd point out is that the improved isolation and leak reduction means that these are very well suited to tracking, as good or probably better even than the 770s. I think that the balanced EQ sound and Soundstage means that I would certainly trust these for mixing and volume and panning decisions. And the clarity means that I can also find sort of critical problems like hiss in the same way that the 770s offer, but maybe not as obviously, so maybe not as fast. All to say that these would be very useful for mixing, and I would trust my decisions that I made with these. I would probably try to A/B them if I could, but all to say I would much rather have had these when doing my mixing decisions than the ATH M50s. So what would I like to see in the future? I'd like to see AKG develop these, and I'd like to see these stay and become kind of a staple of studios. I'd like to see an AKG K381, kind of like the next one up, because there is the 361 of even worse quality. I just would like them to have more serious of a build somehow. I don't know exactly where that would be the case, but I could imagine that the ear cups could be of a more durable plastic. I imagine that there could be things about the headband that somehow are more durable. I don't know, maybe more user replaceable parts, like the headband you could clip off or clip on. That would be cool. And ultimately, it wouldn't even matter if there was a newer version or a more durable version. What I really want to see is that infrastructure of replaceable parts. I think that if AKG had that for these, where you could go to the website or maybe even Amazon one day and buy manufacturer-built pads, that would serve to protect and preserve the sound that makes these so freaking unbelievable. I think that'd be really cool. And that just about does it. I think that these are amazing headphones. They're definitely worth trying. I think they easily compete on par with the 770s. The 770s have a more exciting sound in a way. And so it's like more hit or miss. It's like as you fly closer to the sun, you get burned a little bit more too. So I feel like with the 770s, you'll probably notice that they are more often annoying and also more often exciting in both instances, whereas the 371s offer a more dependable, reliable, consistent sound that seems to bode well with every mix that I've heard, varying from every genre I've been listening to, from things like hip-hop to like lo-fi or classic rock or even classical music or jazz or sort of whatever. Yeah, really impressive. And I will definitely be staying vigilant about any problems that sort of emerge of these, because I think that what people like Wheezy Reviews did with their reviews sort of helped inform AKG about the manufacturing problems of these. And if anything does start to happen, I will be sure to make some kind of a video about it, because I do really love these. I'd like them to last a long time. And I would really love AKG to not abandon this concept and just introduce something completely different. I think that they have a winner with these, and yeah, I'm really excited that I have them. And to conclude, I probably would never get another pair of ATH M50s, because these are the same shoe-in for that price point. Closed back headphones with 3 detachable cables for the same cost, superior sound, superior comfort. That's it. And maybe even a better build quality, I would say, with this kind of metal clamp. This is a full piece of metal. I like that. And I think that the DT770s offer something different from the 371s, and that I plan to keep both of them actually, and that they're going to be useful for different applications, and especially so in the event that these sort of fall apart. On days where I feel like maybe not as capable in my decision making, I think I'll reach for the 770s to kind of say, no, you know what you're doing, and like kind of yell at me with their high end and tell me, you know what you're doing, and everything like that. I hope this was informative and helpful. If it was, please definitely consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to stay in the loop. Lets me know you like this kind of content, you want me to make more, and I will see you at the next video. Ciao for now.